of you to speak up against Donald Trump. And that's why we're here at this hearing talking all about Joe Biden, talking all about Joe Biden's policy this, Joe Biden's policy that, all these people who committed crimes under Joe Biden. Is it just because you're consistently trying to ignore the fact that Joe Biden is not president? Donald Trump is president. And what he's doing right now, which you all know, is he is going after people who are lawfully present. Now, I appreciate the governor's being here. I'm sorry you have to deal with this crap. Governor Hochul, especially, I want you to know, as a proud member of the delegation of your state, I am not going to use my 5 minutes to mount a campaign for governor against you, as my colleague from the North Country chose to do. I will give you the opportunity to actually answer some questions, unlike she did. And I will allow you to explain exactly what the policies in New York are as it relates to cooperation between the state and federal agents.
First of all, glad you're not running against me. Thank you. Secondly, I appreciate the opportunity to break through all the noise here today and to stop the talking points that keep mischaracterizing our policies in the great state of New York. New York is not a sanctuary or a haven for criminals. We devote an enormous amount of our energy working to keep New Yorkers safe. $2.5 billion I've allocated just in the last few years. We do cooperate with ICE when it comes to investigating or building a case against criminals. We do this all the time. And when someone goes through the criminal justice system in the state of New York, they do their time in prison. We alert ICE as to when 30 days in advance of when they're to be removed, and we send them away. That's how it's supposed to work. But what we do not do under our laws is divert our essential resources to protect everyday New Yorkers from crimes themselves and have that help ICE with civil immigration enforcement. That is their job. That is the federal government's job. And we cannot be told to enforce federal laws. It's not constitutional.
Or to use all your limited resources to spend all that time doing their job.
My concern is that every minute that ICE officers are going after moms and dads and kids and separating families, perhaps one more criminal is still out there at large.
Well, it's
Why
funny
don't you
say that.
focus on them?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I actually, in my district office down in Lower Manhattan, witnessed ICE officers waiting for immigrants to come out of a courtroom. These are immigrants who have asylum applications. And I'm sure you agree with me that asylum is a lawful pathway to immigrate to this country. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So in order to make these immigrants here unlawfully, the DHS is now dismissing their cases, their own removal proceedings against them, to void out the asylum process, the asylum claim. That way, when they go downstairs in the elevator, there are ICE agents that can be there and to arrest them and put them in expedited removal. And they don't have an asylum claim that is live anymore because they've just voided it out. These are non-criminal, these are non-violent immigrants who are here going through lawful process. And this is who the Trump administration is going after every single day. It's a disgrace. You said you were going to go after the worst of the worst. You were going to go after convicted criminals. You're here questioning about all these criminals. You're going after people who actually are going through the lawful process you say they should. But just because Donald Trump and Stephen Miller need to bump up their numbers because they can't do a good enough job in actually finding convicted criminals, you're going after moms, dads, separating parents from children. You have a voice, Republicans. Speak up. I yield back.
Now chair recognizes Mr. Jack.
Is he here?
Okay. Mr. McGuire from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a yes or no question, hopefully fast because I don't have much time. So each witness one at a time. If you break the law, are you a criminal? Can you guys answer that quickly? We don't have much time.
In certain circumstances, many
The answer
circumstances,
should
yes.
be yes. If you come across our border illegally breaking our law to come
But
across, are you a criminal? Yes.
If you
or no?
speed, are you a criminal? I mean,
Break the
that's,
law, that's a crime.
okay.
So if you
Call
come
them a
across our
criminal.
border illegally, you're a criminal. Just want to see if we can get that straight. All right, Governor Pritzker, are illegal aliens counted in the U.S. Census?
Every person in the United States is counted.
The census decides how many members each state gets in the U.S. House of Representatives. Year after year, tens of thousands of U.S. Citizens are fleeing the state of Illinois. It ranks only behind Governor Hochul's New York and Governor Newsom's California. You all are protecting and harboring illegal aliens for political purposes. Governor Pritzker, would you support prohibiting illegal aliens from being counted in the census, yes or no?
Your numbers are wrong, sir.
Would you, yes or no?
Your numbers are wrong, sir.
Would
The
you, would
Constitution
you
says
support
how you
prohibiting
count the
illegal
census.
aliens from being counted in the census? Would you? Or
No.
is harboring illegal aliens part of the strategy to get more Democrats in Congress? The bottom line is this: all illegal aliens have committed a crime and should be deported. Any additional act of violence committed by an illegal alien is entirely preventable. All sanctuary jurisdictions are unlawful. Each of you are breaking the law. And my message to you, or the message from the people, is you need to get it straight. Governor Waltz, just over 3 weeks ago, you compared ICE agents to Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo. Governor, do you regret those comments?
I regret that law enforcement is not following best practices, showing who they are, not taking people off the street, not giving due process.
We
It
would
puts
not
all
have a
of us at
country
risk.
without our men and women in law enforcement. Yes
That's
or no?
correct,
Did
and
you
those
know
who
ICE
show their
officers
faces.
are faced? Did you know ICE officers are facing 413% increase in assaults?
Don't wear the masks, identify yourself, and work with local law enforcement.
You guys are doxing them. All right, your attacks on ICE officers are putting our law enforcement in deadly situations. It led to destructive riots breaking out in Los Angeles last weekend. President Trump had no choice but to step up and stop Los Angeles from burning buildings to the ground. Did you see videos of rioters throwing rocks through the windows of police officers' vehicles while they were driving on the highway? Did you guys see that? We wouldn't have a country without our men and women in law enforcement. In 2023, you signed legislation to expand eligibility to illegal aliens for taxpayer-funded health care, Minnesota driver's license, and free college tuition. America Last policies. Let's take a look at some of the illegal aliens you so boldly want to support with taxpayer funds. I'll probably say his name wrong, but Abrahashad Alimi, illegal alien from Somalia. Criminal history includes convictions of murder, DUI, and disorderly conduct. Eric Martinez Mondragon, illegal alien from Mexico and known member of 18th Street Gang. He served time in robbery and possession of a firearm. And Marco Granda, illegal alien from Ecuador. He was convicted for criminal sexual conduct of a child. The taxpayer-funded incentives you are providing in Minnesota bring in vicious thugs who are robbing, raping, and killing your citizens. And American people are tired of these America Last Marxist policies. We need more patriotism. You know, when I look at a MAGA, to me it means make America great again for all Americans, regardless of party, race, religion, or creed. America first. And that's why we won the presidency and we got the Senate and the House. If you had a basketball team and you hate your basketball team, you will never win. And we have a heart and love all people of the world. But if we can't take care of our country, if we're allowing these illegal criminal aliens to rob, rape, and kill the American people, that is wrong. And that's why we won. And if you guys keep that up, we'll keep winning.
Congressman, can I respond to the two cases in Minnesota? I think it's important to the hearing we're having. You want to know what we're doing. Mr. Alami was held in Freeborn County Jail.
So,
Straight resources.
Governor
paid for
Hochul.
that.
Debrina Quam fell asleep on a subway in New York. While she was asleep on a train, she was set on fire and killed by an illegal alien from Guatemala. This could have been prevented. And what upsets me or strikes me the most is that in Democrat-run cities, people are so desensitized by the violence and the policies that people just stood by and watched that happen. What can we do better?
The entire situation sickens me to know that that happened in our state. I abhor all crimes, and that one was particularly heinous. And that's why my law enforcement are dedicated to keeping the streets, subways, and communities of our state safe. It's my #1 priority. It's how I've invested enormous amounts of resources. And just for the record, we do cooperate in criminal identification, prosecution, and removal of individuals who commit crimes who are not in this country legally. We want them deported. We cooperate with ICE every day of the week to make our streets safer. I'm not sure why that's not breaking through in this hearing. How many times can we say that? We're not supporting this. We don't want these individuals here. We abhor this violence and crime. So that's the message should be the takeaway. How can we work together? How can you do your job and help us secure the border and have more legal pathways for people who want to be here legally and contribute to our economy, but not the criminals. We are not a sanctuary for any criminals.
Yield back.
Gentlemen, time's expired. Now, Chair recognizes Ms. Morrison from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses for being here today, especially you, Governor Walz. It's great to see you as ever. Welcome back to the People's House. Thank you for your distinguished service in the National Guard, 24 years, I believe. Thank you for your service here in Congress and as our governor. I'm sorry you haven't received the warmest welcome here today, but I'd like to start by taking a moment to correct the record on a few points. I think all of us here would agree that violent criminals who aren't citizens shouldn't be in this country, full stop. But that's not what this hearing is about. This hearing is about intimidation and striking fear in immigrant communities. This hearing, unfortunately, is not about moving forward with the comprehensive immigration reform our country so desperately needs. It's about distracting the American people from the disaster that has been the first few months of the Trump administration and his Republican majority in Congress. Much like our state, my congressional district is diverse. I represent many immigrant families who call our community home, and we welcome them because they make our community stronger. I recently had the honor of attending a naturalization ceremony where we welcomed new Americans from 85 different countries. It was an incredibly moving day, an auditorium full of new Americans who were so excited and proud to join our great American project. The room was full of hope and patriotism. I could not have been more proud to welcome them and to participate in that day. We are a country of immigrants. It is what makes us strong and dynamic and unique in the world. My colleague's characterization of our state bears no resemblance to reality. Would you agree, sir? Minnesota is an incredible state with a wealth of business, industry, natural resources, beauty, and rich diversity. And it's a state where working families thrive. As you know, Governor, we worked together for 6 years when I was in the state legislature, and I am so proud of what we accomplished during that time. We delivered for the people of Minnesota the largest middle-class tax cut in the history of our state, historic investments in education, created a paid family and medical leave programs that allows working parents to care for their children and their loved ones, codifying the right to comprehensive reproductive health care, and providing school breakfast and lunches for K through 12 students so no child in Minnesota goes hungry. If we want to talk about protecting our children and families, let's talk about the chaotic tariff war President Trump started, which is serving only to make life less affordable for families and is decimating small businesses. Let's talk about the 16 million people who are going to lose their health care or who are going to have their health care taken away from them by the Republicans and their ridiculously named Big Beautiful Bill. Let's talk about the millions of children who will go hungry if the Republicans are successful in taking away their food assistance. Governor Walz, since my Republican colleagues want to talk about threats to our children and families, let's talk about food insecurity. It's now been over 2 years since you signed the school meals legislation into law. What has been the impact of this program on fighting child hunger in Minnesota?
Yeah, well, thank you, Congresswoman, and we miss you in Minnesota, but glad you're here. Well, the direct impact to families is a savings of about $1,700 a year to those families that they're able to see, and mostly middle class. But the real impact is on educational achievement. Last year, Minnesota was able to notch the highest graduation rates in our state history. We also see school attendance rates go up. We see better behaviors, less discipline from it. So it's a smart investment. It's the right thing to do. And the payoff for Minnesota is we have a healthier, better educated workforce, which is why Minnesota almost always ranks near the top in quality of life indicators.
Thank you, Governor. Now I want to talk more about the Republican plan to take food assistance away from our children and families. If their budget becomes law, it will be the biggest cut to SNAP in history and jeopardize food assistance for millions of families across the country, including 100,000 Minnesotans, many of whom are children. Would you agree that the Republican proposal to cut SNAP is one of the biggest threats facing children and families in Minnesota right now?
Yes, coupled with Medicaid and Medicare cuts.
And also, Governor Walz, I just want to give you a moment to, if there's anything you'd like to clarify that's been said in this unbelievable committee hearing today. I don't even know what the adjective is.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. And we have like 30 seconds. Look, we're here to work with you. You've heard time and time again. We have a job to do as governors. The federal government has a job to do. Not doing ICE's job is not interference or not wanting to get these people. And the gentleman asked the question and then left. The gentleman he brought up with, we held him, we paid for it, we called DHS before he was released. The second one he mentioned, DOC called DHS prior to his release. We do that every single time in Minnesota. That law has been on the books for many years, and that's how we implement it. So I just don't understand why we don't want to work together to be successful. None of us want the criminals on the street, but I certainly want immigrants in Minnesota who are contributing to our quality of life.
Gentlelady's time's expired.
Thank you, Governor.
Chair recognizes Ms. Bobert from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Los Angeles riots are certainly a shameful explosion of lawlessness that we are once again seeing. The narrative has changed in these riots, but it's certainly the same type of actors. We're seeing businesses torched, cars torched, families uprooted, certainly communities that are scared. And this is by no means a peaceful protest. It is absolute chaos, and rioters don't get a free pass to burn down cities just simply because they're mad, because they are mad that our nation's laws are being upheld, that our federal agents are upholding their oath and doing what they were hired to do. Our first responders deserve respect. They do not deserve to have rocks thrown at them and to be injured. But I mean, let's be honest, this violence didn't really spark in a vacuum. Sanctuary policies are a magnet for trouble. They shield criminals, undermine the rule of law. And governors, I've sat here and I've heard you today. You say that safety is your number one priority. You want your communities safe. You want your people safe. And Governor Hochul, you just asked, how can we work together to ensure that that happens? Well, that's exactly what we want to do in this hearing. We want to work together. We want to talk to you about your sanctuary policies that are actually preventing us from working with you to keep your community safe, because we want them safe as well. I have the same policies in Colorado that restrict our local law enforcement officers from coordinating with federal agents. And some of my counties have issued lawsuits to try to end that. But this is serious, and we owe it to every American to restore safety and enforce our laws. It's been stated that this is a federal law and it's not your job to uphold the federal law. Well, we're not asking you to uphold it. We're just asking you to kind of step out of the way and allow the federal government to do the job to uphold these laws. When you have someone, don't wait until they commit a violent, heinous crime before we know their immigration status. So now we're seeing these riots everywhere. We've heard in 2020 that everything was mostly peaceful as cities burned down, as people lost their lives, as law enforcement officers lost their lives. So I just want to ask you three governors, yes or no, is the destruction of private and governmental property, is that something that fits under your definition of a peaceful protest? Governor Walz, yes or no?
No, it does not.
Thank you. Governor Pritzker?
I find it hard to believe that you're lecturing us
Yes or
about
no?
peaceful protest. Look at what
Yes or
happened
no?
January 6th here at the
No,
Capitol.
what we're
The
seeing in
attack
LA
on
is
our
an
democracy.
insurrection. You want to talk about
That
an
is an
insurrection? This is an
insurrection.
absolute insurrection.
You don't
They are-
understand what insurrection
I
is
asked
when
you a
people are
yes or
trying to
no
overturn
question,
an
sir,
election
and I'm
here at
showing-
the Congress.
I started this off
You
showing
were
you
here.
the
They were
forum, and I would
attacking you, by
respect
the way.
same. I would expect the same.
I'm answering your question. It is outrageous that
it-
you are asking
Is
us
it
these
peaceful to
questions when you're the one condoning
to
hardening
destroy
of people who attack
private and
police
government property?
right here at our Capitol.
Governor Hochul, it's been a long day. Does that fit under your definition of a peaceful protest? the destruction of private and government property.
No, and we feel for the business owners and the community for what's going on there.
So
but
do we.
This is a
Yes
narrow
or no,
scope of
would-
people, and the
Would
vast
lighting
majority are
police
peaceful.
cars on fire fit under the definition of a peaceful protest?
No, we reject that. No one should be lighting police
Governor
cars
Pritzker,
on
yes or
fire.
I'm
no?
opposed to violence in any form. Yes.
Governor Walz?
Yeah, we reject that.
Okay. Throwing bricks or large rocks at police officers? Is that peaceful?
It is not.
Is that peaceful, Governor?
Whether it's in Los Angeles or here in Washington at the Capitol, no.
Yeah, that didn't happen here. Governor Hochul?
Rejected.
It actually did, but no, it's not acceptable.
Okay. Governor Pritzker, you have you or have you not called for mass protests and mobilization and disruption?
Indeed, microphones, megaphones,
This was
and
this
going
was,
to the ballot box.
Well, they're responding in a much different way, are they not? President Trump also
Peaceful
asked for people
protest is
to
the history of this
peacefully
country.
make their voices heard. So it's okay for you to say that and hold that standard, but President Trump has a different standard when he
I got it.
actually makes the claim.
Inciting
peaceful,
riots at
and
the
you
Capitol,
said
yes.
you want
There
mass
is a difference
protests,
between the two.
mobilizations, and disruption as a response to President Trump's policies. I just think that this is all hypocritical. You've called in your National Guard. You don't want President Trump to come in and enforce the rule of law to keep communities safe. And your destructive policies are harming American citizens. We should not have to wait until violence is committed to find out their legal status. We have 2 million unknown gotaways because of Joe Biden's administration, and we have got to find them and get them out of America. And I thank President Trump and his administration for doing just that. I yield.
Gentlelady yields. Chair recognizes Mr. Craig from Minnesota.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for allowing me to wave on to this committee today. I think if I were a permanent member, I'd have a permanent headache.
Well, you won't have to worry about it, but go
Governor
ahead.
Walz, it is so good to see you today. Let me start by saying that we should all be against chaos. We all are for a safe and secure border and an orderly immigration system. What we're seeing now, though, is chaos out of the current administration with their blatant disregard for due process and their indiscriminate immigration executive orders. In fact, the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security had to take down its posted sanctuary jurisdictions list because it created mass confusion in Minnesota for local officials and was opposed by local law enforcement. And so, Governor Walz, let me just start, just so we know the record is correct. I didn't think Minnesota was a sanctuary state. Is Minnesota a sanctuary state, Governor?
We are not. The legislature has passed no such law, and I have signed no such law, and we follow all federal law.
Thank you, sir. That list included 20 counties when it came out across Minnesota without any rhyme or reason, including LeSueur County, which I represent. I've inquired into why they are listed from DHS, but still absolutely no answers. Governor Walz, I thought it might be helpful to point out that according to the FBI's own 2023 data, Minnesota has fewer violent incidents per 100,000 than states such as Tennessee, Louisiana, Missouri, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, I'm going to repeat that again, Georgia, and Ohio. Why do you think that our state has been able to maintain a lower crime rate than other states?
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. And we are at a 30-year low on serious crimes. And as you said, we consistently rank below. And I think that's because we invest, as we have, historic investments in law enforcement, but law enforcement works with the community. There's a process in place. We know who they are. They work hand in hand. We make sure that those laws are followed. And we also have policies where we show compassion to our neighbors. And it's not chaos, as you said. It's done right. So I am grateful for the law enforcement who does that work. But I'm also grateful to the legislature and my administration who have put in historic amounts of help to make sure they're able to deliver those services. And they are the ones that are best trained to do it. And the case that you brought up of listing these, in Minnesota, counties can go above the federal floor. If they want to issue detainers, they certainly can. Many of those counties that were listed on there would fit the definition of everyone on this side of the aisle is asking for, and they're doing that. Nothing prohibits them in Minnesota from doing that, and yet they ended up on the list. It caused great chaos, and law enforcement themselves, and as you heard earlier, Sheriff's Association issuing, that it can't be done this way.
Thank you, Governor. Earlier today, I spoke with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, and I think all of us here share the goals of lowering cost for our constituents and growing the economy. According to a Minnesota Chamber Foundation report from this February, Minnesota's immigrant labor force participation rate was over 74%, well above the national average. And they fill important jobs in our agriculture, healthcare, and manufacturing sectors. Governor Walz, how can we ensure Minnesota remains a state to attract the talent we need and a strong economy?
We invest in our people. We make sure we remain the #1 healthcare state. We make sure that people are safe in their communities. We talk about focusing on the work that the state patrol keeps our roads safest. Top 3 state for the lowest number of traffic accidents. That's what they should be focusing on. Investing in, as the chamber is focusing on, Minnesota's #4 in Fortune 500 per capita, and we were ranked 6th best state for business. Continue to have a well-educated, a healthy, safe, and make sure we're investing in those opportunities for people. That's all we're asking. And we're asking that the federal government do their job. You continue to ask states to do ICE job. They are free to do their job in Minnesota, but they're asking us to do the job when we're doing everything we can to help. But we have all of the other responsibilities of educating, of public safety, of roads, of transportation, of water infrastructure. And that's why Minnesota remains a top state, because we invest in our people, we invest in their growth, we invest in their families.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate this. And Mr. Lynch, I'll yield last 20 seconds to you if you've got that.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that. Thank you very much, Representative. For this 12 seconds, I just want to read. This is from the Minnesota Reformer from February 12th, 2025. The sanctuary bill that was offered in the Minnesota legislature is already dead, as House Speaker says it doesn't have the votes. So this was an attempt to actually make Minnesota a sanctuary state, and it, like the Speaker said, didn't have the votes and died very early in the process.
And we got to the business of balancing our budget and investing in all of the other things we needed to do.
All right, gentlemen, ladies, time's expired. Chair recognizes Ms. Miller from Illinois.
Thank you, Chairman. Governor Pritzker, Illinois is at a crisis point. Illegal aliens in our state have overwhelmed local communities and schools, causing untold pain and suffering while costing the Illinois taxpayers billions. Governor, in a recent report by Capital News of Illinois, you called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit the Capital News of Illinois report titled Trump's 100 Days. Pritzker calls for mass mobilization as he grows his national profile.
Without objection, so ordered.
Governor, before we go any further, will you commit today to working with the Trump administration and ICE to ensure that the violence we've seen in Los Angeles does not occur in Chicago or anywhere else in our state? Yes or no?
Thank you, Congresswoman Miller. We work every day with the federal government
Yes
to
or
keep
no,
our
sir?
streets
Will
safe.
you commit to working with the
We
Trump
do
administration?
all the time work with the federal government, law enforcement.
Okay, I'm taking
constantly.
that as a yes. Governor, you said earlier this afternoon that you were willing to, and I quote, stand in the way of Tom Holman, end quote, who I would like to note is carrying out federal law. I have before me numerous examples of illegal alien violence in Illinois, but I want to highlight the story of Joe Abraham, whose daughter was tragically murdered by an illegal alien in central Illinois. Under your watch, sir. I will now read his account. Hello, my name is Joe Abraham. I am the father of 3, and Katie was my youngest. Katie had a beautiful soul, a sharp wit, and a huge personality. She loved life, and she lived it with authenticity, humor, and heart. She was the kind of person who succeeded at anything she put her mind to. She had a future full of promise. She was everything to our family. In the early hours of Sunday, January 19th, Katie was riding in a Honda Civic with 4 friends. They were stopped at a red light when their car was struck from behind by an SUV traveling 78 miles per hour. The driver didn't brake, he didn't swerve, he just slammed into them. The driver had previously been deported and was in the country illegally using an alias. He was allegedly intoxicated. After the crash, he fled the scene on foot without calling 911, without offering any help to the 5 women he had just hit. Katie died at the scene. Another young woman passed away the next day at the hospital. Instead of staying to face what he had done, the driver fled Urbana, made his way to Chicago, and then boarded a bus headed to Mexico. Thankfully, he was captured before fleeing the country. We share Katie's story, not just to honor her memory, but to raise awareness and to seek justice. No family should have to endure this type of loss. Sir, the family is here. The father is here. Would you like to apologize to Katie's family? Feel free to direct your comments to me.
I am very sorry for their loss. I really am.
I can only imagine what other instances have taken place but have not been reported. You have stated that Illinois will not allow local police departments to assist ICE as they work to address the illegal immigration crisis that you helped to create. In light of the crimes that I have mentioned, do you stand by your policy of tying the hands of Illinois law enforcement? Yes or no, sir?
You know, Congresswoman Miller, I am
Yes or
not
no,
going to be
sir?
lectured to by somebody
I'm
who extols
reclaiming
the
my
virtue
time.
of
I'm reclaiming
Adolf
my
Hitler,
time, Chairman.
of somebody
In
who has allowed the
2024,
pardoning
after
of January
I'm
6th.
reclaiming my time. In 2024, after the presidential election, you stated on MSNBC that, and I quote, "I am going to do everything that I can to protect our undocumented immigrants," end quote. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit a Fox News report into the record titled, "Dem Governor J.B. Pritzker vows to do everything I can to protect our undocumented immigrants."
Congresswoman, I was
These
talking about
policies
the people
are
who have
not
lived in our
only
state for
deadly,
decades
these
now.
policies are not only deadly, but they have cost Illinois taxpayers billions to the tune of $3 billion since 2022. Governor, your state budget doesn't balance without massive yearly tax increases. This year, you hiked taxes by $800 million. Your budgets fund the services of
That's
illegal aliens,
inaccurate,
while
Congresswoman.
Americans are
Again,
left behind.
inaccurate.
with many
Nearly everything
choosing
is
to flee our
mischaracterized
state.
in your statement.
Governor, I judge you based on your actions, not on your words. And from what I can tell, you are doing everything in your power to roll out the red carpet for illegal aliens to protect them, all at the expense of working people of Illinois. Your policies have been disastrous for our state, and they would be disastrous for our country. And with that, I yield back.
Your failures are a
Gentlelady
disaster for this
Yields
country.
back. Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Superman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I first want to say that what happened this afternoon, this afternoon's manhandling of Senator Alex Padilla after he sought to speak at a public press conference was wrong and should be condemned by both parties, by every member in this chamber. But it follows a pattern in this administration of weaponizing law enforcement and using excessive force to attack peaceful protests and political opponents. And it's terrible. I mean, you know, we're talking about what's going on in sanctuary states, quote unquote. But you know, I live in Virginia, and we're not a sanctuary state. But what is happening is that our sheriff's office has made a decision to participate in the 287G program, and basically working with ICE to show up in schools, show up in businesses, and try to basically attack kids, right? Detain kids. And this is wrong. And this is not what our country is about. And so I do not want us to be supporting these types of actions. Yesterday in Sterling, Virginia, we had masked men show up to a courthouse and detain people and arrest people. And a lot of this is peaceful. And this, again, follows this pattern of weaponizing law enforcement and weaponizing the DOJ and other places to attack political opponents, attack peaceful protests, and to go around trying to make a political point And because I think that's what this is really about. This is about politics, and this is about using law enforcement to show strength, but that's not strength. That's not strength. And so the other thing about this is none of this is making our communities safer, and none of this is good for our country. And so I want to ask Governor Walz, do these raids and do these actions and this use of law enforcement, is it making the folks in Minnesota safer?
Well, thank you, Congressman. In my opinion, no. It's causing chaos and fear amongst folks and characterizing folks who are waiting on asylum claims, who are trying to become naturalized. It causes chaos. And the other thing it does, it causes local law enforcement. They lose trust in the community. It puts them at risk. And the lack of coordination that we hear, that no calls are coming in, we always coordinate. And in the past, Democratic and Republican administrations have coordinated with us. We're not seeing it. It's creating chaos and fear. And yes, get these stories of these violent criminals. We hold them. We call DHS, but those violent criminals aren't at a preschool. That's what we have to get right. Go after why you're doing this. Get us a bipartisan bill that makes sure that folks can process and be documented, and let's make this country prosperous and continue to have a country.
Exactly, because that's a great point. Because if we really want to solve immigration, why don't we do a bipartisan immigration reform bill? We can strengthen our border. We can find a path for those who've been here for a long time. We can actually solve this problem in Congress, but instead we're going around with masked men, intimidating people, throwing U.S. senators to the ground, and not solving any problem. And Governor Pritzker, I've talked to a lot of businesses in my community who are really concerned about what's going on, and this is not good for our economy either. And so I'd ask you, Governor Pritzker, what do you feel? Is this good for your state? Is this making folks in your state safer or well off or better off?
Congressman, thank you. And no, this is making us worse off. It's actually harming public safety. It's frightening our communities. And frankly, if you're one of the people, the U.S. citizens that are getting taken off the streets, or people who are here in this country legally taken off the streets, I mean, imagine what effect that has on the rest of the population. And in my state, we reject that. I mean, the values of the people of the state of Illinois reject that. And I just want to say, because Congresswoman Miller would not allow me to, I just want to say very importantly that anyone who is condoning the $400 million airplane going to the president of the United States from the Qataris, who would spy on us in an instant if they were able to do this. Anybody who's condoning the president of the United States accepting the Chinese Communist Party money to his family through his meme coin. I mean, that is corruption. And yet that is what Congresswoman Miller is condoning. She's the one who thinks it's okay to pardon people who attack police right here at the Capitol. Thank you for giving me that moment.
I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes Ms. Fishback from Minnesota.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be waved on today, Mr. Chair. And I will just say that oversight is far livelier than Ways and Means. But, and Governor Walz, I want to say I thank you for being here, because I know you've been very, very busy running around the country, giving speeches and having town halls in Republican districts. Yeah, well, you were running around, though, I know, while they were trying to negotiate that. It's my time, Mr. Governor Walz. It's my time. But there has been a lot of discussion and questions about policies that provide benefits for illegal aliens. And I understand, Governor, that you're going to say Minnesota is not a sanctuary state per se because the legislation was not passed. And just a yes or no question, Ranking Member Lynch had mentioned that there was a bill that was introduced for a sanctuary state this year in the Minnesota legislature. Would you have signed that bill? Did you support that bill?
Oh, thousands of bills introduced, hypothetical. We don't have it. I operate under the same law you operated under.
Okay. Thank you, Governor Walz. But Governor Walz, we all know that you probably had you probably had some opinion on that bill. You're just choosing not to answer because the answer was probably yes. You would have signed that bill if it had passed. So, but like Mr. Emmer, Mr. Crane, I think Mr. McGuire, a whole bunch of them mentioned the policies that Minnesota has. So yes, I understand, not a sanctuary state per se, but the policies are certainly making it into, I think, as I recall, they mentioned driver's license for all. They mentioned the free tuition for illegal immigrants. They mentioned the Medicaid benefits. So you in essence create a sanctuary state.
You know, the
certainly not
sheriff
formally.
supported the driver's license bill,
Uh,
the hospitals and others.
Governor Walz, I am certainly aware of that. I served many years in the legislature. I still keep an eye. I have many friends there. I understand that. But in essence, they are creating a sanctuary state in practice. And so we are going to talk a little bit about the legislature, because just earlier this week, both chambers of the Minnesota legislature passed HF1. And you're probably familiar with it. I don't know if you've signed it yet or not, but it repeals Minnesota care eligibility for illegal immigrants, adults ages 18 and older. And with that recent repeal of eligibility for illegal immigrants, a policy that initially, I mean, it was after my time, was enacted in your time, 2023 under your administration. Now being reversed with those budget negotiations. I was just wondering, first of all, do you know how many illegal immigrants were covered and are currently covered in Minnesota with Medicaid?
I don't have the exact number. It's not Medicaid. It's state that does this through Minnesota Care.
Okay, well, but you still don't know how many. So
I don't
all
have
of
it,
those
I believe-
negotiations you were deeply involved in earlier that you mentioned you were deeply involved in, that number never came up?
I don't have it in front of me right now.
Okay.
So we can certainly get it to you.
I would love it. I would love to have that. But do you support, I mean, I understand, did you support that provision that removing the illegal immigrants?
I will sign it into law.
No, did you support it during the negotiations?
Do I support it? I'm going to sign the bill.
But there's negotiations. So I guess what I'm
We're
hearing,
very
though,
good
is you
at it.
didn't
That's why we have a
support-
balanced budget.
You didn't
And so I negotiated
support-
with the Republicans. Do I think it makes sense? Look, you know, Congresswoman, that federal law requires us to provide health care to people when they show up in emergency rooms. That's why the hospitals have uncompensated care.
Reclaiming my time, because you're trying to change the subject, because I asked you very specifically during negotiations, did you support the provision to eliminate illegal immigrants from healthcare?
It's a question that makes no sense. I support
right.
it at the end of the
All
day
right.
in a negotiation, which I
Thank
agreed to
you,
and
thank
will
you,
sign it.
thank you, Governor. I mean, you were here in Congress. You understand what reclaiming your time means. Yeah, you understand that. But I guess I will move on because, you know, there was concerns about SNAP provisions being cut and all kinds of, but you supported that. I mean, you supported that over the over government, over the healthcare to illegal immigrants. I guess I'm confused about, because you had other cuts you had to make. So what did you, all of the things that you guys have been talking about with law enforcement, education, school breakfast and lunch, did you cut that during the budget negotiations this year? Because my understanding is you had quite a deficit.
We don't. We have a budget surplus, as you know, Congresswoman.
Well, long-term, but you had to make cuts this year.
We had a balanced budget. It's something we can help you all with. We have a balanced budget we agreed on. We left over
Okay.
1.9 billion on the bottom line for this biennium. And even.
But
on
your
the second
structural
biennium,
budget, you
structural
had to make
balance was
cuts.
reduced by 50%.
You had to make cuts. Or no, you didn't make any cuts.
We balanced a budget. We moved and we invested.
All right,
That's what we
Governor, I'm
do.
going to move on because I have one more thing and I'm running out of time, because I really do want to talk about, you had mentioned civility, or someone had mentioned civility. There was a discussion earlier about civility. But Mr. Fallon had mentioned how you had said, you know, you want to kick Republican ass. You've mentioned bullying. There's another one where you're going to bully the SHIT out of President Trump. There's all kinds of things. And then you had a discussion about civility. And I'm embarrassed because you say you're an educator and you're the governor of my state that I'm supposed to be proud of. And this is the kind of garbage, the example you're setting for our children, that you're telling people to bully each other. And I try very hard not to say those kinds of things because I understand that it is meaningful. When you hold a position like this, you should not be saying things like that.
But you support the president's language?
Hey, gentleladies,
Woman?
time has
the
expired.
president is not in front of me right now, Governor.
Gentleladies, time's
I
expired.
understand you-
Chair recognizes the ranking member
Kind of
for
garbage.
unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have here a statement from the distinguished Representative Betty McCollum from Minnesota that notes that Minnesota's crime is declining, 30-year low. Companies are hiring. It's one of the best places to raise a family in America, and it is not a sanctuary state.
Without objection, so ordered. Chair recognizes Mr. Lawler from New York.
Governor Hochul, under your watch, New York has spent billions of dollars of taxpayer money providing free housing, clothing, food, education, and health care to illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, you're charging hardworking New Yorkers $2,500 annually just for the privilege of driving to work. Speaking of driving, when you ran for Congress, did you oppose giving driver's licenses to illegals? Yes or no?
No, that was previous to that. It was in 2020.
You had a commercial running for Congress touting your position.
No, but the position
about
goes back earlier than that.
driver's
My point.
license.
My point.
Did you oppose giving driver's licenses to illegals when you were running for Congress? Yes or no?
At the time I did,
Yes
and I'll
or no?
tell you
Governor,
why.
yes or no?
I had a
yes or
chance to go out and see a very rural district
Reclaiming my
where
time.
mothers were being denied the chance. to
Governor,
drive
yes
their
or no?
kids
Do
to
you
the
support
doctor's
illegal
office.
immigrants getting
People were being denied the
taxpayer-funded
chance
health
to go to their
care?
jobs, and I understood the
Governor,
merits
please
of
answer the
having it.
question.
I'm
Governor,
not sure there'll ever be a real question.
you were asked a question and you chose to
I
try to
gave an
deflect.
answer.
The fact is you did support giving illegals driver's
It was
licenses,
a-
oppose giving illegals driver's licenses. Now you support it.
Mhm.
Governor, yes or no? Do you support illegal immigrants getting taxpayer-funded health care? Yes or no?
We provide health care to people in need, including moms with new babies.
Do you support
We-
giving illegal immigrants taxpayer-funded health care? Yes or no?
We support giving money, support
The
for
answer is
healthcare
yes. You expanded healthcare access in 2024
did.
under Medicaid.
for senior
Governor,
citizens
after
and
the
moms with
election,
new
you
babies.
said,
I would do it all
reclaiming
over
my
again.
time. Governor, after the election, you said, someone breaks the law, I'll be the first one to call up ICE and say, get them out of here. Governor, yes or no? Have you personally called up ICE and asked them to get anyone out of New York?
As the governor of New York, I have an entire state police
Have
force
you
that
personally
carries on
called
my
anybody up
directions.
and asked ICE to get anyone out of New York? Yes or no?
My state police acts as my agency and
You
my
have
surrogate.
not, correct?
When I say me, I'm referring to my entities such as the state
Oh,
police that
you're
handle
like
that.
Governor Cuomo. I am the government. I am the government.
That's your
position?
characterization, not mine.
Yes or no? Should ICE have been called on Sebastian Zapata Cali?
Can you refresh me as to the circumstances of the case?
He's the individual who burned the woman alive on the train.
Of course,
Should
they
ICE
should.
have been called on him?
NYPD was handling that situation.
Should ICE have been called? That's my question. Yes or no?
If there was an arrest made, he should have been deported after conviction. Yes.
Okay. So, Governor, when you were sworn in 2021, you signed an executive order keeping many of Governor Cuomo's executive orders in place, including EO 170. Interestingly enough, you did not include EO 170.1. Are you familiar with EO 170.1?
I don't have it in front of me. I have thousands of executive
I have
orders.
it right here,
I'm
Governor.
sure you do.
And what you did, you waited several years until this year, January 16th of this year, in which you finally signed it and reinstated it into law. Why did you wait until just 4 days before Donald Trump was sworn in as president to sign EO 170.1 into law? And to refresh your memory, it basically mandates that federal immigration authorities cannot enforce civil arrests in New York State buildings. Why did you wait several years to reinstate that?
Because we had a high level of confidence that under the previous administration that people going into the courthouses, whether they're victims of crimes, witnesses of crimes, would have their rights protected. I had no
In other
assurance
words,
that that would
you
happen.
believe they would not enforce federal immigration law, and you were concerned that President Trump and his administration would enforce federal immigration law?
We thought it was important for victims of crimes and witnesses to murders, for example, that they have access to courts without being threatened or intimidated.
Yeah. Speaking of crime, more than 3,200 illegal immigrants have been arrested in New York City for committing crimes while living in taxpayer-funded housing under your watch, Governor. Governor, are you aware of any law or executive order that would prevent a citizen of New York, a citizen of the United States, from facing criminal or civil enforcement in a state building?
I'm not aware.
So you think that citizens should be treated less than and have less protections than illegal immigrants?
No, we
Is that what
refer-
you're saying?
Our state laws say we cooperate in all criminal cases. I've made that very clear over the last.
Yeah, but you're not doing that.
7
That's the
hours.
reality. Governor, do you
Truth is,
support
we do
you
don't
support
help
the
them
New
with
York
civil
for All
enforcement
Act?
because civil
Governor,
enforcement
reclaiming my
isn't-
time. Do you
Go for it.
support the New York for All Act?
I'm not speaking about hypothetical
No,
bills.
Governor, this isn't a hypothetical. There was a sit-in in the state legislature today by activists blocking state senators from coming into the chamber. Do you support the New York for All Act? It's yes or no.
I will tell you this, I get about 1,000 bills put on
Do
my
you
desk
support
probably
the
by
New York
midnight
for All
tonight,
Act?
which is, this is keeping me from doing the work of the people back home. But I can
Governor,
sit here
you've
as
done
long
a
as you
terrible
like.
job as governor. It's not keeping you from anything. Frankly, New York is better off with you down here and not in the state. The
I
fact
don't
is,
think we're better off with
the
you here.
fact is, Governor, you will support the New York for All Act. You will sign it into law if it passes the
I have no
state
confidence it's
legislature.
going to pass.
You have no confidence it will pass.
don't
If
know.
it does pass, will you sign it?
I'm not able to keep an eye on it. They're voting on
Will
the
you sign it
positions now.
into law if it passes?
I have about 1,000 bills that get
Will
passed
you
every
sign the
year.
New York for All Act into law if it
You'll
passes?
have to wait
Yes or
and
no?
see, like every other bill.
We have to wait and see?
Yes, because
Governor, you
I've-
can't take a position on the New York for All Act. It would put into state statute that New York is a sanctuary state. That's why you're here. That is the exact reason why you're sitting in front of us testifying, because of your disastrous EOs, your disastrous pro-criminal policies that have resulted in the death
Chairman.
of New Yorkers.
Mr.
That is
Chairman.
your failure. And the fact is that you can't even answer the question.
No, the
Will
reason
you
I'm
support
sitting
the
here
New
is
York
because
for All Act?
Republicans are
Gentlemen's
looking
Yes or
time.
no?
to
Time's
deflect from the
expired.
big, bad, ugly bill that's going to hurt people. in
Governor-
your
Governor,
district.
gentlemen's
will
time's
you
expired. Governor, are you going to
support the
answer
New
his
York
question?
for
Will you
All Act?
sign the
I don't know
bill?
what he's asking me.
He asked if you were going
I
to sign
don't,
the
I don't
bill.
ask anybody in the state of New York. I never say how I'm going to vote on decide on a bill until it lands on my desk.
You are the
Thousands-
governor of the state. You are
All right.
supposed
I'm
to
well
lead.
aware.
You
well
want
aware
New
I'm
York
the
to
governor
be
of
a
the
Gentlemen's
state.
time's
sanctuary state.
expired.
It's shameful. It's shameful. You can't even answer the question.
When it lands on my desk, I'll do the proper
Mr. Chair-
evaluation.
Chair
You'll do what?
recognizes.
That's
you
what
have-
we
You'll
do.
do what?
That's how
You'll
you become
sign
a
it into
governor.
law.
You'll
That's
never know.
exactly what
Okay,
you'll do.
Chair recognizes
Sign it
ranking
into law.
member.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have a number of unanimous consent requests, one from the National Immigration Center,
Without objection to order.
National Immigrant Justice Center, and the Alliance for Immigrant
Without
Survivors.
objection to order.
They speak for themselves.
Chair
Do you know that, yes or no?
I
Not a
don't know
trick
how many.
question.
I-
It's not a trick
Congressman,
question.
I don't know.
I'll
how many
answer it for you.
years.
23 years in Duluth.
Thank you for that.
So, Governor, do you recognize this picture?
I do recognize the picture.
Briefly describe it to us. What is it? What's going on?
These were folks, I believe the people in the picture now are incarcerated in
It's
Minnesota.
a
to the best
precinct
of
3
my-
burning down because of your decision. Was this a peaceful protest? Was this a peaceful protest?
The gentleman standing there,
Was this a
That was a-
peaceful protest?
it was a criminal act that people were prosecuted for.
So it wasn't a peaceful protest, right? As I watched lawlessness devastate Los Angeles this past week, I was reminded of your failure to protect Minnesota from similar riots. Governor Walz, on May 29th of 2020, during your own press conference, you described your response to the riots during the 2020 Summer of Love as, quote, an abject failure. Governor, I couldn't agree with you more.
That's out of context.
And on
Congressman,
May
you know it.
17th, 2025, you were at the law school, graduating Minnesota Law School, talking to the graduates. And we've talked about this. You called the enforcement of illegal immigrants a modern day Gestapo. You've been asked 3-4 times if you would rescind that, and you won't. Will you rescind it? This is like the 5th time. Yes or no?
Congressman, I was talking to law students about due process, and I
So
said
you won't rescind it?
you took an oath to due
Governor,
process.
was there a violent Al-Shabaab terrorist who entered our country illegally, arrested in Minneapolis last year? Yes, there was. Were there 3 illegal child predators arrested by ICE in St. Paul earlier this year?
I certainly hope so. That's their job.
Yes, there was. Are the officers who arrested the Al-Shabaab terrorists or the child predators, are they Nazis or the Gestapo?
The tactics of wearing
They're
masks,
not.
the tactics of wearing masks.
Why did you
Unidentified due process.
tell us that they were the Gestapo? Do you believe that any of the violent illegal immigrants I have mentioned have a right to be in this country?
I don't know what their immigration status was.
They're illegal, violent criminals that the ICE took off the streets of Minneapolis.
You did not say,
Last week,
Congressman, what their status
Governor,
was.
last week, law enforcement officers in the state of Minnesota took 900 pounds of meth off the streets. Do you support that?
We certainly do.
Do you know that
Fentanyl,
ICE?
other such-
Do you know that ICE assisted in that those arrests and investigations? Do you support the assistance of ICE in that enforcement action? Yes or no?
I can't speak to that because we were not included in the briefing.
You don't know if ICE was part of it? I'm telling you, they were.
I don't have that data. I would have to trust you.
Will you apologize to our constituents and law enforcement officers for making them and their families less safe with your incendiary actions?
I'll congratulate them that they helped us work on the largest pension bill for
Governor.
Minnesota law enforcement in
Governor.
30 years.
Claiming my time. Governor, what weapons did you carry in war?
Congressman, for 24 years, I carried.
No. What weapons did you carry in war?
What did you carry in
What did-
uniform?
I
You
tell you
know I
what, Governor,
misspoke.
you're
know I
barking down the
misspoke.
wrong tree, okay?
You know I
You
misspoke.
lied to the Minnesotans. You said that you carried weapons in war.
Mr.
That is
Chairman.
stolen valor. You know
My-
what? My wife
Yeah,
served 24
Chairman,
years in the
a
little bit of
military,
respect for the
and she's
witness.
an Iraq war veteran.
You know what I mean?
She was
Just
over in the
hectoring is not-
war
not-
zone. That's
On a point
stolen
of-
valor, and I'm so
point of order,
disgusted with
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
And so are the people that you serve
Point
with.
of order.
Point of order.
That's stolen
Halt
valor.
just a minute. Stay.
Stolen
I
valor.
don't know. Mr.
You didn't
Chairman,
carry weapons
that's
in
not questioning
war.
the witness.
Congressman, my 24 years was
That's not
public
Will
for
you
many, many
apologize
years.
for lying?
Objection.
Will you
No, I'm-
apologize for lying?
Objection.
All right. Hold on. Pause.
That's not questioning a witness. That's not questioning a witness. You
The
think
point of
so,
order.
huh?
State your point, Mr. Enkelman.
No, you're
State
yelling
your
at him.
point.
You're
There you
hectoring.
go.
You're hectoring. You're
All
hectoring.
right.
You're hectoring.
State your
Governor,
That's-
you didn't carry
that's
weapons
not-
in war, did you?
State your point.
You didn't
Proceed.
carry
You
weapons
got
in
24
war,
seconds.
did you?
Congressman, you know I
didn't carry
misspoke.
weapons in war, yes or no? You lied. Governor, what rank did you retire at?
I
What rank
served,
did you retire at?
Congressman, I served my battalion as the command sergeant
That's
major.
not the question
for
I asked.
pay-
What rank did you retire at?
I retired as a master sergeant in
Okay, here's your coin that says you retired at a command sergeant major. That's
Says
your
I wore
challenge
that-
coin.
It
This
says
is-
I wore the rank.
This is that's right. You didn't retire, did you?
I did
Stolen
retire after
valor.
24 years.
Here is a picture of your coin, your challenge
Jesus
coin.
Christ.
I'm disgusted with you. I'm just.
Mr.
Governor,
Chairman, the
you lie
time
when
is
the
expired.
truth- you
Congressman,
lie
I'm-
when the
I'm
truth
Gentleman's
is
time's
better.
expired.
You called half Trump supporters Nazis and fascists, and you know what? That's why the Minnesota Police and Peace Association did not support you in the last election because
Well, I
you're missing
support
in
them.
action.
And-
Gentleman's
on
time's
behalf
expired.
on behalf of the folks from the land of rocks and cows, thank you. Now you back.
Chair recognizes Ms. Tenney from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to wave onto this committee for this important oversight committee hearing. And happy to have the governors here to hopefully answer some questions and just to address a couple things that I've heard in this committee hearing. I haven't appeared on oversight before. I do serve in a much milder Ways and Means Committee, but I just want to say a couple things about what this committee, what we're doing today, and about sanctuary cities. We are all children of immigrants. My grandparents met at Ellis Island. They sat in quarantine. They came from other countries. They came here to work. That's not what this is about. This hearing is about people who have taken advantage of our borders and our country, who have come in as illegal cartels, who have overrun our northern border, which is part of my district in upstate New York, in New York 24. And these people have taken operational control of our southern and our northern border. And we need our governors to make sure that they're providing the law enforcement backup to our ICE agents and others, and not assisting and aiding and abetting in such a way to these illegal immigrants, particularly the cartels. And I think one of the most important things, I'm sick of hearing everyone defaming my constituent, actually, Tom Homan, who's doing an excellent job and who served our country honorably. His big concern, and I think it's a big concern for me, because when I served in the state legislature, Governor Hochul wasn't there as either the lieutenant governor or the governor, but I was one of the leaders on human trafficking. And one of the important questions that Tom Homan talked about repeatedly is, where are the 300,000 children who were human trafficked by people who are profiting off of this human trafficking, not just drug trafficking, human trafficking, innocent children all through our interior. We don't know where they are. Those are the people that I'm concerned about. And what ICE is trying to do is get to those people who are taking these children and profiting off them and having no regard. And that's what worries me the most, is we've gotten off track on a number of things. And what concerns me is we have this defund the and demoralize the police movement brought to a level where we're defunding and demoralizing ICE agents who are simply doing their job to protect our borders. And what concerns me is, and I know Governor Hochul, and obviously I'm going to address you because you're my governor. People have addressed the billions of dollars that New York State taxpayers, by the way, the highest taxpayers in the entire nation now. We're always in a struggle with California, who's more, who's less, and I think we're winning out this race now. Not a good distinction, by the way. Not a good distinction to have a northern border that's overrun by people who are human trafficking, bringing illicit drugs into our communities. I've had three parents in my community, my own home community, where their sons died of overdoses because of illegal fentanyl. So these are real issues that are coming from people that are coming across our borders. So we know we've spent billions of dollars on all kinds of illegal immigrants in New York State. The estimate is between New York City and New York State, it's about $7 billion. And that's New York taxpayer dollars. Those are my tax dollars. People, constituents I serve who go to work every day. And all we're trying to do is keep these communities safe. And you mentioned that, Governor Hochul, that you were talking about keeping these communities safe. But I'm going to ask you a question. And I've got a series of questions, and some of them have been asked by my colleagues. But I want to ask you right now, because you're the governor of our state, and you've been presiding over a pretty disastrous situation with our prisons. And many of those prisons, including one of the maximum security prisons, is actually in my district, and a number of other facilities. Are there any criminal, illegal gang members in the New York State prison system right now? Just if there are.
No, Congressman,
and
I
you know
wanna-
how many, and if you can't get me the answer, can your staff provide us with a general information on that?
No, I'll tell you this. I totally agree with you, Congresswoman, that more needs to be done to protect our border. We've asked for support from the federal government for the border that you represent and I know so well. I've had to deploy $8 million of my own state dollars to amp up.
Well,
the
there are
enforcement.
state dollars, but let me just take this back.
But
Let
to
me
help
ask
with
you
human
back about
trafficking.
let me get to the prisons, because I want to get into another thing. Are there criminal, illegal immigrant gang members in the New York State prison system right now?
If there are, there will be.
Do you know? You
30
don't
day-
know.
I
Yes.
know.
Do you know
Of
if
course
there are?
I'm sure there are.
But
That's
do you know?
why
Can
I've
you
already
just,
sent
that's what I want to know.
1,300.
Can you get
I've
me the
already
number?
had ICE take 1,300 of them upon.
But
the
I'm
completion
not
of
asking you
sentence.
that. I'm
So
asking
I
you,
have no
can we
doubt
get
that
the
there's something.
information about how many of these, whether they're Trende Aragua, whether they're MS-13, Crips, Bloods? I've toured the prisons. I've seen, people that they line up in rows. I want to know how many of our illegal immigrants that are putting not only other inmates at risk, but also our prison guards who are at risk. Because right now, these types of people are in our prison system are putting our corrections officers at risk. And by you shutting down and cutting off the ability of our corrections officers who are trained to deal with these kind of people there, we're losing the ability of having the trained people there. And our National Guard are wonderful people who serve our communities, but they're not trained to be able to do this. And many of them are underage in that. Can I get the information from you on that?
Certainly. And again, I just want to reaffirm that if there's someone convicted of a crime in our prison, they will be deported. We let ICE know 30 days before the end of their sentence. And that's why I've sent 1,300 people already just since I've been governor out of our country. I don't want them here any more than you do.
Okay, can I just
Congresswoman.
ask you one last, because you talked about you don't support a sanctuary city. Right now you were lieutenant governor when this was signed into law under Governor Cuomo. We have the green light law. It prohibits the local DMVs, gives driver's licenses to illegal aliens, which you once didn't support, but now you do. You've admitted that today. Under the green light law, would you support repealing the green light law so that we could allow ICE agents to work with our DMV to find out when these people drive across the Canadian border and they have a carload full of innocent children and they can't find any information on them because they get a legal license? Can you just give me that information?
Last question, feel free to answer it.
We
Governor.
absolutely share information on such situations with ICE. That is our job.
Do
We
you support
provide-
repealing the green
Gentle
light
lady's
law?
time's expired. Chair recognizes
Time's
Mr.
expired.
LaHood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your indulgence for letting me wave on the committee today. I know it's been a long day. I want to welcome our governors here today. Thank you. Governor Pritzker, on behalf of my constituents and myself, I have serious concerns about the current state of Illinois and the continued direction your administration is taking when it comes to sanctuary policies. And I know we've talked a lot about that today. And I want to be clear, your sweeping sanctuary policies are not just misguided in my view, I think they're dangerous. Your agenda puts ideology above public safety, ties the hands of law enforcement, and signals to violent, criminal, illegal immigrants that Illinois is a safe haven. Your administration has made the state of Illinois among the national outliers to defy federal law. And you've doubled down on policies like Illinois Way Forward Act, which is legislation you proposed and signed that prohibits local law enforcement from cooperating with ICE, even in cases involving violent criminals. And I think, hearing you today, I think you honestly believe that refusing to turn over convicted felons to federal authorities makes our community safer. And I'll tell you, Governor, it doesn't. And as a former federal and state prosecutor who's worked very closely with law enforcement, none of that makes us safer or makes law enforcement feel comfortable. Instead of working with federal law enforcement to remove dangerous individuals from our streets in Chicago and across Illinois, you're creating bureaucratic roadblocks and political cover. And in my view, that's not leadership, it's government malpractice. Illinois families are already struggling with the highest combined state and local tax burden in the country. And they should not be forced to subsidize over $2.5 billion in Illinois taxpayer money that's been spent on illegal immigrants over the last 4 years under your sanctuary policies in Illinois. I want to mention two specific cases, although I could talk about a lot more. A tragic case involving the family of George Levin, a 63-year-old man who was murdered by a pair of illegal immigrants who were arrested in Chicago in January. He was found bound with duct tape and his legs tied with an extension cord. The title of an article was "Two Migrant Men Beat Chicago Businessmen to Death, Left Him Bound, Gagged," prosecutors say, dated February 1st, 2025. Again, under your sanctuary policies in the state of Illinois. I'd like to submit that for the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, to ordered.
Second one is a case of two families. And I want to highlight Chloe Polzon and, of course, Catherine Abraham, two girls in their early 20s that were killed in a fatal hit and run by an illegal immigrant in Urbana, Illinois. And again, the title from that article, Glenview family seeks justice after migrant suspect kills daughter and friend in Urbana, hit and run. I'd like to submit that for the record.
Without
also.
objection, to ordered.
And so, Governor, I guess a question for you, as you hear these stories, and there's many others, does it cause you to rethink your sanctuary city policies or regret some of the policies you've taken as it relates to sanctuary cities?
Thank you, Congressman. I'm glad to see you here. I know you were unwilling to meet with your constituents about the Medicaid cuts that
So
you
answer
voted
the
for.
question. I thought you might not answer the question whether reclaiming I'm going to reclaim my time because you did not answer the question, which I thought you would. When I asked, when you hear about victims that suffer violence because of illegal migrants in a sanctuary city state, you said no, it hasn't caused you to rethink. Reclaiming my time. Now,
That is
Governor
not what I said.
Pritzker,
These
you
are
mentioned
heinous crimes.
reclaiming my time. I have the
judicial
time. I
warrant
have
is
the time.
all the federal
Earlier,
government. You all have the ability to
earlier,
fix this.
Governor Pritzker,
Do your
earlier-
job. Do your job,
earlier-
Congressman.
Yeah, I would deflect too instead of answer those questions. Now, you said earlier, you in a response to a question from Chairman Comer, that you have been critical and had been critical of President Biden and his border policies. And you cited a letter, October 2nd, 2023, that you authored. So I pulled the letter and I was looking for this criticism of the Biden border policy. 3 pages, nothing in there. Now, I'm going to submit for the record so everybody can see it. October 2nd, 2023, letter from J.B. Pritzker to President Biden. Not one mention of being critical of the border.
Without objection, to ordered.
Thank you. Now,
Public
I
statements
wanna-
on national
again,
programs
it's
about
not
this.
your time. Governor Pritzker, it was mentioned earlier, all these rosy statistics about Illinois, but I want to mention a couple that weren't mentioned. Illinois is the leader in outmigration of people leaving the state of Illinois. We've led for the last 4 years, 5 years, people want to leave the state of Illinois. We lost a congressional seat, as you're well aware. We have the lowest population in the city of Chicago now than in 100 years. People continue to flee Illinois. We have the 5th highest unemployment rate in the country, the 2nd highest property tax rate in the country, the 5th highest illegal immigration population in the country, with over 500,000 illegal immigrants leaving in Illinois. None of that got mentioned before, but that's the reality. And to be honest with you, Governor Pritzker, I wish you didn't have to be here today as my governor. I really do. But unfortunately, because of your failed policies, you have spotlighted Illinois, and that truly is unfortunate, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. And
Congressman,
our
the
last,
half of that is completely false and needs to be corrected, and I will if given the moment to speak.
our chair
Our population is increasing. We have a higher population as a result of
gentleman,
the
whoa,
census that was done in 2020. It was your Republican
yeah.
governor.
Governor, you'll
and
have
you
time to
served in the
answer that.
legislature. You were part of those policies. We are turning the
Governor,
state around.
Chair recognizes Mr. Jack.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as the last questioner today, Mr. Walls, I think you're not going to need any more Diet Mountain Dew after this. But do you, just one thing, just to kind of bring this entire hearing back into the perspective, just to help us understand and this committee understand the policies of your administrations. We'll start with you, Governor Walls. Do you accept U.S. code, which establishes that improper entry into our country is illegal and enforceable by the federal government?
Improper entry, meaning not asking for
Illegally
asylum.
crossing is an illegal act and therefore a criminal act.
Civil in some cases, criminal as the government does it. Yes.
Thank you. Governor Pritzker?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure,
for
no
me?
question. So just establishing that your administration respects that U.S. code believes, U.S. code affirms, and your administration believes that improper entry into our country is an illegal act and therefore criminal.
As the federal code says, we believe it. Yeah, and we follow it.
Thank you, Governor. And Governor Hochul?
It depends how the federal immigration authorities enforce it. Sometimes it's civil, sometimes they do it on the criminal side. It's up to them to make that determination.
Thank you. One of the reasons why we just want to establish that is with respect to illegal immigration. I mean, you were elected in your states, but your state's policies affect my state in Georgia, affect my constituents in Georgia, because when you create policies that incentivize illegal immigration, incentivize folks crossing illegally and being criminals into our country, it challenges, it presents challenges to us, and it presents challenges to our ability to protect our constituents. In my district, every single person on this panel, Republican and Democrat, has a story, a painful story about how an illegal immigrant or many illegal immigrants have taken lives of those within our districts. In fact, in my district alone, in Columbus, Georgia, Dr. Malcolm Goodchild was killed by a drunk driver illegally here in our country. Of course, we talked about Lake and Riley. My colleagues have done that ad nauseum. So we also talk about the financial burden that's associated with those of us that represent folks in Georgia and your states as well. In Georgia alone, I just want for the record to note that $563 has been associated with the increased costs and increased burdens of my constituents because of illegal immigrants within our state. In our closing time, Governor Pritzker, we had Mayor Brandon Johnson testify before us, and I know you've at times expressed concerns about how he's run his administration in Chicago. I'm just curious if you support one of the things we talked about in this committee, perhaps you prepared for it, was a directive that he sent to Chicago police directing them not to cooperate with federal law enforcement enforcing immigration operations. Do you support that action from Mayor Johnson?
I support actions that follow the law of the state of Illinois and the federal law.
Do you think Mayor Johnson has done a good job with respect to law enforcement in his city?
Law enforcement has improved markedly since the choice of Larry Snelling as the superintendent of police in the city of Chicago.
What grade would you give A to F Mayor Johnson with respect to law enforcement in a city?
I wouldn't grade the mayor. I will say that Larry Snelling is doing an excellent job as superintendent.
Thank you. Governor Walz, I think you bring an interesting perspective to this conversation because you were just a candidate for national office on a ticket that lost. Exit polls from 2024 show a clear bipartisan majority of Americans trust President Trump to effectively handle immigration. Recent polling affirms Americans overwhelmingly support President Trump's immigration policies by a 30% margin. Even CBS published a survey that shows 6 out of 10 Americans say it is very important to deport illegal aliens. And of course, we've established that anyone crossing the border is, in fact, a criminal. So, Governor Walz, I'm just curious, given Americans' overwhelming support of President Trump's immigration policies, do you believe your record on immigration is one of the reasons you lost the vice presidency?
Congressman, I'm not familiar with the polls you're talking about. I can only speak to Minnesota, that there's an anger about how it's being carried out. No one disagrees that we need an immigration reform and we need to fix it. What they don't see is whether it's a United States senator being taken down for asking a question, or whether it's a 4-year-old girl with cancer being sent out of the country.
Well,
That's the frustration.
Put another way, I'm just curious. I mean, you were on a national ticket that lost, and I'm curious, what issues do you believe you failed to litigate properly with the American voters?
Oh, I'll let history relitigate that.
Fair enough. And I'll just close, Governor Walz, if I could. You know, one of the concerns that's been raised about why illegal immigration was so bad under President Biden is that he just cognitively was not there during the end of his presidency. When did you first become aware of President Biden's cognitive decline?
I don't have the expertise to judge on that.
Did you have conversations with Vice President Harris at any point about his cognitive decline?
Not that I can recall, no.
With that, I yield back to our chairman. Thank you for convening this hearing, and I appreciate your attention to all of our communities that we serve. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yields back. Because we had some wave-on members on our side that went over, I'm going to yield 2 minutes to Mr. Lynch.
Thank you. I just want to update the gentleman on the most recent polls. You're right. The president did have favorable marks on his immigration policy early on, but since these snatch and grabs have started, he's underwater. 54% of the American people oppose his current policy, this active policy he's got going on right now. With that, I know, Governor Pritzker, you had a desire to fire back at some of the allegations to you. You have that opportunity now. I yield you as much time as you need, although if you have any left over, you can give it to your colleagues.
Appreciate it, and I am a sharer. I will thank you very much, Congressman. And let me just say that I'm so proud of my state and the way that we have operated, particularly in the last 6.5 years, to protect people. Public safety, so important in our state. I've increased the number of state police in Illinois, actually to highs that didn't exist even before my predecessor, the Republican governor. We also have done a lot to invest in violence prevention. And you've seen the result of that, and the fact that we have banned assault weapons, that we have banned ghost guns. I would ask the members of Congress and the members of this committee to work to ban assault weapons across the United States. It worked back in the 1990s. It would work again if you pass it, to lower the crime rate, lower the homicide rate. We have so much work to do as a country on immigration reform. And I don't understand why at about 50-50, this Congress is about 50-50 between the two parties. Isn't it about time that you got together and got comprehensive immigration reform done? We've seen it over the last 40 years, attempts along the way. It always fails. Every time it's because of Republican members walking away from the table. You all are in control of the Congress and the presidency. You can get together with Democrats and get something put together that will secure our border and have a big door that allows people to come who are working hard, who will raise families in the United States and help our economy.
Governor Walz, I know you took some incoming today. You got any closing remarks?
That's part of it. I would just say, Chairman Comer, acting ranking member, thank you to you. And I would like those folks sitting behind you and along the wall, thank you to all of you for accommodating this. Chairman, thank you specifically for accommodating our state schedule on budget. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Governor Hochul?
No, thank you for the opportunity again, Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Lynch. Not sure what to say after today's experience, almost 8 hours of sitting here and not doing the work of the people of the state of New York, but here's what I want to say. My number one priority has always been and always will be keeping New Yorkers safe. I believe our policies and our laws as implemented do. Second point I want to make, I want to express my absolute outrage on what we've seen happen to a U.S. Senator in the United States of America, regardless of what anyone does, to have someone like that treated like a common criminal as if he was a threat and throw him down and have to handcuff him with 3 people shocks the conscience. And as a former member of this body, I hope we'll all stand up and condemn this and say, we can do better. This is a great country. Let's make sure we ensure that it stays great.
Thank you. And Ms. Sky Perriman, I just want to say thank you to you for your help here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranking Member. And I'm going to assume you all haven't seen the entire tape at the beginning. I'm sure MSNBC or whoever sent you the clips has only shown you the end, but I think it'll be interesting when you see the entire clip of the incident with the senator. Before we close, I want to thank the Abraham family again for attending today. The purpose of this hearing is to try to get the illegal immigrants, the criminal illegal immigrants out of this country. And I think that's a goal that an overwhelming majority of Americans have. The governor said under oath that they were not sanctuary states and they would cooperate with the federal government. We'll see if that happens. That's good to hear, but we'll see if that happens. So with that, and without objection, all members have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witness. If there's no further business, again, I want to thank the witnesses for being here today. I know it was a long day. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service. So without objection, the committee stands adjourned.